Welcome back, everybody, to part 2 of our Lava River series. And I'm in Substance Player right now, and here I have the actual material that we made in the last video, and I've plugged it into the landmass that I made for my test. And a couple of things. First, I'm not entirely sure I'm crazy about the colors here, so I'm going to come back in here and adjust those a little bit before we go any further with the actual rocks. And second of all, I kind of wanted to show you this in player first, because we're also going to have to come back into this material we made in the last video and create an input parameter that will allow us to mask out any areas where we have land. And by creating an input parameter in this actual animated material, it lets us use it again with any kind of landmass we want, whether it's this one that I'm making now or something else down the road. It's going to have this built-in mask that's going to allow us to manipulate it straight from the original material using any kind of input from the material that we're putting it into. And what we're going to do then is have a secondary animation that is going to run underneath this mask that's not going to be moving quick like this. I mean, it kind of looks weird because, yeah, here it's a river and it's moving along, but it shouldn't be doing it here. You know, in between these cracks, what it should be doing is just kind of glowing. So that's what that mask is going to take care of. Right. So before we start making the rocks, let's come back into our lava river. Right, so first things first, let's fix this color. I'm just not happy with it. I need to fool around with it a little bit. So I'm coming into my gradient editor and I'm just going to mess around. Okay, that's better. I want to see what it looks like in the other directions. Yeah, I'm definitely getting happy. Maybe another little line around that purple bit. Maybe just a touch of yellow, and I think then I'll be happy. Yeah, that's more kind of lava lampy, which is what I was going for. It was just looking kind of boring before. You know, I'm going for a cartoony look, but you can make it look however you want. I mean, that's what the gradient map's about, and that's why I get very persnickety with it, because you can, if you take the time, you can actually get quite a lot of control with it. I think maybe some of these bigger ones are looking a bit bland. Maybe put a little bit more in here. Hold on, let me back out of that. I want to grab a second one of this pure color. Yeah, that kind of makes those big ones, you know, that big purple space isn't quite so flat anymore. That's what I was going for. Let's give it one more turn, see how they look in each interpretation. Yeah, okay, now I am happy with it. Okay, so the next thing we need to take care of in here is that input parameter. So I'm going to right click, add node, grayscale image input, because we're going to be inputting a mask. And let me get another blend node. And this is what we're going to be cutting out. I mean, I'm only going to do it for the color, because honestly, this is just for that glow within the cracks, and I don't think it's worth the effort or processing, you know, or processing time to do it on these nodes. So I'm only just going to put it here, but I mean, you could use this mask for any one of these. So you would do a blend to, you know, to blend out what you want using this mask. But right now, because it's an input, we can't really see what it's doing. So what I'm going to do is just go into my library and find a bitmap. Okay, this is a good one. And so this is going to act right now as a stand-in for what we're going to be doing later on. So the white is going to be the landmass, and the black is going to be my lava. So if I do it this way, obviously it's giving me the exact opposite of what I want. So I need to put an invert grayscale in here. And that gets whatever black and white image is coming in here, that's going to get it to do what I want it to do here. However, I do want to just point out that, in this particular case, I know that I'm going to want it inverted. But if you really do want to make this a material that can pretty much be used with anything, it's something you have sitting in your library and you pull out when you need. What you can also do is create an input parameter that will handle this. And this will actually toggle that inversion true or false. And that's pretty easy to do. We can just expose this. And then when we bring it into the other material, it will have that input parameter for us. Okay, so we've made this mask. We're actually going to put it on here. This is just for demo purposes. But we need to bring something else in. Actually, no, we do need this one. I misspoke because this is giving us the little black things on top. So yeah, we're going to be taking this and we're going to be masking it against whatever's going on here. But what are we going to put in here instead? And for that, I'm going to get another gradient and we're just going to create that glow. And we want it to kind of wiggle around a little bit. So I'm going to come all the way back here to our original Gaussian noise. And then we can just put some colors in here. So I'm going to pick from the colors that we have here. Maybe a little dark, maybe like that. And that means that this is coming straight off of that low-res Gaussian noise, so we have to make this relative to parent. That's better. So this is going to be whatever is going on underneath our white rocks. I mean, they're white in this mask. And this is going to create that glow inside the cracks. Now all I need to do is connect it to the input. Whoops, I forgot to put this in there. So let's do that instead. Yeah. Okay. So right now there's no mask at all because this is completely black. We've inverted it and it's showing us our foreground. So, apparently no change. But what it means is that we're ready to start working on our landmass, and we're going to have this input parameter now that we can use directly in there. Okay, so File, New Substance, and here we are. Let's get our output sorted out. So I'm going to want my height next to my normal. I'm not going to use a metallic, so I'm just going to convert it into my emissive. Okay, so emissive color, normal, height, roughness. We can save this. And let's get our lava waves in here. So now we have our lava waves and we have our mask. We created this invert parameter here, but I know that I'm not going to need it in this particular material, and I bet it's going to help it run better. So I'm just going to come back in here now that we've proved we could do this, and I'm just going to clear it out of here, and I'll get rid of the input parameter, and I'm willing to bet that we're going to shave a few milliseconds off of that speed. Nope, we actually added to it. Well, you don't know. I mean, honestly, it's not really giving me accurate information right now. But we're giving it one less thing to do, so logic would dictate that it's going to be lighter. Right. Let's start building our landmass. The first thing that we're going to need to do is just kind of create a shape. And for that, I'm going to get the Gaussian noise. And I'm also going to get a gradient. And again, I used, I believe, number 3 because I wanted I just wanted a bigger gradient. The only really important thing here is that it be tiled. So, either 2 or 3 here is going to work. But it has to be the same up here as it is down here. Otherwise, you're going to get a line. And then I'm going to get a warp. And I'm going to make this image bigger. So I'm going to scale this down. probably like that. And then the other thing that I want to do with these guys is bring down their resolution because we don't really need high res here. We're only dealing with these very big, broad shapes. So I'm going to bring this down to parent -2. And that's going to have this whole thing run, at a 512 size. In my notes, I had this intensity at 21.38, but you can have it at anything you want. What you're doing is you're creating, this shape for yourself. So find something that you like. I think that's pretty good for a start, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get a levels node in here, and we're going to turn it into, black and white mask. I don't want really any major grayscales in here. So again, get it to the shape that you want. Now, right now, I'm going for the most river-like of my shapes. What I'm planning on doing is having it go from like basically just one horizontal stripe, and then as we go through the various configurations of the rocks, it's going to be less and less of this river idea and more like, a swamp probably is the best analogy as far as land versus liquid. So I think this is probably pretty close. Let's maybe get rid of some of those gray areas. We can have a little bit, but mostly black and white. And we can get an idea of what our configurations are going to be by messing around with this scale. So as I scale it up, this warp and this levels node creates different masks for me. And here's where you decide what numbers you're going to put into the function we're about to make. And we're going to put it on this scale here. And this is an integer. This is moving in whole numbers, right? So I like my starting position at 6. And then I'm going to go 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 5 spots that I'm pretty happy with. And they're getting progressively more, more broken up is probably the way to do it. So I want to be able to create a function that's going to give me the numbers 5 through 10, essentially. And it's going to be an input parameter that is going to be an integer. And we're going to leave it as a slider. I just realized we don't even need to do... I do want a function because I want the numbers to start at 1 and go up to 5. We could also do this by setting the defaults to be from 5 to 10, but it's kind of awkward. So I'm going to set my max to 5. My minimum I want to be 1. And then let's come in here. Let's come onto the Gaussian noise and turn that into our 5 to 10 range. So I'm getting my integer. So I'm just adding 5 to everything, right? Because that's going to be our starting point. So this is the easiest function you'll make today. And now we just, we can do it through here. Oh, I was moving my defaults. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do this. Where's my... I'm going to clamp it. I don't want people going over what I've set up. Okay, so we've created our integer, and now I'm going to bring it back to 1. I want to start dealing with, having this look more like a rocky shore, which involves breaking up the edge. So to do that, I'm going to come back in here, and I went into the library and I found this is what I thought would do the best job for us. It's Crystals 1. It's got this kind of angular thing going on, which I really like. So it looks like spike, it's spiky. And we're going to do the same thing to this as far as its resolution that we did to these other masks. So, oops, I'm going to bring this down to parent -2. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to set the scale on it to the biggest size that I'm going to be using it for, which I decided was 16. So, roughly that size. Now, right now, to make this rocky shore, we're actually going to want it smaller than that. So I'm going to get a transform 2D, and I just divided it by half. I like that size. Let's see how it works out here. We're going to get a warp. And, you know what? It's not too intense. We're just kind of breaking that edge up a little bit. And we're now, we've got this actually the opposite of what we want. So I'm going to get an invert grayscale, and we'll invert that. And this is pretty nice black and white. I think that the key here, because we are dealing with these rocky edges, is to not have too many gradients going on. I mean, you need some, but not too many. Now, I want to break it up even more. So I'm going to come back into this Gaussian noise and use that some more, because I want it much, much smaller. Another warp. Maybe take it down another notch, make it a little bit smaller, and then take the intensity down. So, this is very crystalline, and then this kind of wiggles it out a little bit more. So we've got this edge now that's still holding the basic shape of what we've got, but it's broken it up some. And we can put a levels node in here also, to do any fine tuning that we want. And at this point, I'm also going to step up the size, because the next step is going to be plugging into gradient maps and stuff like that. So I'm going to make this, instead of relative to input, we're going to make it relative to parent, and it's going to make it big. But all this stuff we really didn't need big, because these are just like these vague shapes that we're going to be using underneath all the other stuff. Okay, so let's make a frame around this. Pull these out. And we can call this basic ground. The next thing I want to work on is the cracks that are going to kind of, where the lava is going to be poking through. And for that one, I'm going to get cells 3. Make sure that's the right one. If you right click on these, it'll tell you what the path of it is. And I want the one from the substance library. Again, we're going to bring down the resolution to parent size -2. And then, and also let's bring down the distance. I think it's scale or distance. It's called distance here. I had it at 5. And then I'm going to get a blur, a high quality one. And we're going to blur it out ever so slightly, because what we want is to, in essence, thicken up the lines a little bit. So in my notes I had 0.74, but it kind of makes them a little bit fuzzier, which in reality widens them out. And then if we get a levels node, once we've done that and darken it up, the lines become much bolder. So I really wanted to get to be as black and white as I can get it. I really don't want much grayscale in here. Okay, that's pretty good. And again, we're going to get a warp, because I think these are too straight. And I'm going to get another transform 2D. Actually, no, we'll use this size right here. And then we can bring down the intensity. Now, you know what? I just misread my notes. I want that one second. We are going to do it against that. I'm just going to do it against the round one first, because I want to round them out. The Gaussian, I should say, not round. I want to get them more squiggly, and then I want to sharpen them up. This is going to make them more jagged. This is going to make them more squiggly. And when I was experimenting, I liked the way it turned out, the order of doing squiggly first. But it needs to be much smaller. Let's try that first. I had 1.5 in my notes. Yeah. I mean, this way it's, this kind of changes their shape so they're more irregular, but now they're like too round. And then I put them in here, and that kind of gives them more of a jagged edge. And the order that you do it makes a difference. So this is going to be the cracks through which we're going to be able to see that glowing lava under our mask here. Make a frame around this. Right, so the next thing we're going to deal with is a mask that's going to take care of our normals. We're gonna need to use a gradient map to do it, basically, because it's just, this stuff is just too simple, and I want to basically hand draw a normal map, and the easiest way to do that is to create a grayscale using a gradient map, and then we can use it for a normal. Right, so we are going to want this as a grayscale, and then we have to decide what we're going to be putting in there. I want to use these guys to a certain extent, but I don't want, I want to have the edge, I want the normals around the edges of these things. Well, actually, I should say these things. I want there to be like roughness that corresponds to the actual edges here. So I need to base it off of this, but I don't want it to be the exact same as this. It's sort of ground cover at this point. So I'm going to get another warp, and I'm going to plug in this guy here. And then I'm going to come back to my crystals, and we'll just use this guy. You know, kind of like that. So, you know, give them a frame a little bit. I'm also going to have to grab up another noise in here, and I think I used black and white spots. One, I forget what they call it. I forget what the exact file name is. It's this one. So we're going to use this as a mask as well. Let's put it out here. I like to have my masks more or less in the same spot. And this one, I'm going to bring it down even more than the other ones. I'm going to just bring this down to 3, apparent minus 3. Because this is going to just, this represents, you know, kind of like larger rocks. It's not so much dirt, and I really don't need it that high resolution. And I also want to have it more even. So I'm going to get a levels node and kind of make the whole thing less contrasty. And then, you know what, I'm going to move this up. Let's get a blend node, and we can put the cracks on top of this. And we'll do it using a multiply. And so this is, again, we're thinking normal maps here. So this is kind of dealing with the edges of where our cracks are going to be and the, you know, rock surface on top of it. But I do also want to represent the cracks. So I'm going to get another blend node. And this time we're going to take this guy and we're going to multiply it on top. But you know what? I'm looking at my notes again. I missed a step. I'm going to put my gradient map in here. And this is going to be, didn't I already make one? I guess not. Yes, I did make one. It's right here. I'm like, I thought I made a gradient map. I want to put it in here. And the other thing I wanted to do is I want to have this be a parent size. Because this is what this is where my colors are coming from. So it's okay to have this mushy stuff in here because I'm going to be able to take all of these mushy grayscales and turn them into clean, concise tones in here. And because it's the background, this one with the dot is where this one is getting its size information. The fact that I've got this plugged into a 512 by 512 doesn't matter because it's getting its size information from here. And now what we need to do is to come into this gradient map and turn it into something that looks completely different than what happens when we just overlay these grayscales on top of each other. Okay, so my blacks, I want black. I'm going to get another one in here and let's see what happens. Let's grab up some samples and just start moving them around because I don't really know what I want yet. I know I want the dark areas, like the cracks to be dark. That I do know. Right, so I need to find out where. Now, I think first what I'm going to do is get a levels node in here. Oh, I see what I did wrong. I am going to put this after. This is different from my notes, but I think I want to do it this way. I think this is going to give me better tones. Because what I did in my original notes was that I overlaid these black things on top of, well, we'll see. No, I am gonna do it this way. I think ultimately it's gonna give me better results. The difference is that here I'm this black right here off of this, when I multiplied over this, it's not gonna pay attention to what this gradient does, so it's gonna give me these clean lines, and I think that's why I stayed that way with it. So let's come back to our gradient and take a look at it again, because I think I was just looking at this one. I wasn't liking what I was seeing, but with the black overlay, it looks very different. So let's continue to make some different colors in here. Now again, this is representing heights. So what I'm trying to do here is just create an attractive sort of jaggedy rock surface. And by using this gradient map, I'm not really obliged to follow any of the other stuff that's going on here. And I can actually just assign new grayscales to it, which is really nice. So if you want, like really sharp edges, then you keep these pretty close together and you have very shallow gradients. If you want something smooth, then you keep more distance between them. I'm going to come in here and get more contrast a little bit, see what that looks like. Yeah, I think that's a little bit more interesting. Let's see what that looks like as a normal. So I'm going to get into the library. I'm going to height to normal. I mean, you still have to use your imagination a little bit. But yeah, that looks like volcanic rock, because it's got that really jaggedy, swirly kind of vibe to it. Cool. Okay. I want to create right now a mask that is going to let in our missives. So while we're still, it's still working on this cracks that we just finished, so we might as well continue this out. Except now it's a positive mask, right? So I'm going to get another invert grayscale, and we're going to take this here, and we're going to invert it. And then I'm going to get a levels, and I'm going to, make it more contrasty, because this is going to be a mask where I want spots where it's really going to show. And we're going to get another invert grayscale. And I'm going to take, I use this one. We may end up using a different levels node, but the idea is here we're going to blend this so that it's not all like this one even color, because I wanted to get it nice and bold using this levels node, but I don't necessarily want it that bold, but I do want it thicker. So by putting this as a mask, it's going to, it's gonna break it up a little bit, but I think I do want its own levels node. So it gives us the combination of thick lines as well as some variation, because we've got that sort of dirt underneath. I'm going to leave this at 2K. In my notes, I stepped it down by 1 to 1K, but I'm going to leave that alone. And I also inverted it back again. I must have done that for a reason, probably because this just gave me a better result by flipping it and then flipping it back. I don't remember now, but this is what my notes say, so I'm just going to stick with that, because I'll be honest, it's been a little while since I actually created the test material, so I don't exactly remember why I did it. But we're going to put a frame around this, and we're going to call it Rock Emissives Mask. Okay. Let's build our height map now. We've got all the bits we need to make it, and this way we'll get it out of the way. So I'm going to get a blend, and we have our basic landmass, this guy, and then we have, I'm trying to see which one, this one, and we're going to use a darken for this one. And then we'll do another blend that's going to put in the actual cracks. And again, we're going to use darken. It's hard to tell, but yeah, that height's in there now, because we still have rocks everywhere here. We're going to deal with that in a second. Okay, so we've got the rocky normal here, clearly, but I also want to overlay it onto the normal that is coming off of our height. So I'm going to get another height to normal, and we'll use an overlay blend for that. I'm finding this very distracting, this right now. I'm going to just temporarily just do this, and we can use this mask. Yeah, I mean it's getting there slowly. I mean these edges are still very smooth. Let's see if we can't do something about that. I mean, we're going to do stuff later on that's going to help it, but I wanted to see, I'm not worried about this black shape yet. I want more coming out here. I'm trying to figure out how to get that to happen. Yeah, I think that's fine for now. Okay, so now we're ready to work on our color. And I'm going to use it off of this one, so it's going to match what our normals are doing. And I think we'll go with sort of something in the blues. You know what, let's put it, am I looking at the right one? Yeah, okay. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it on this one because I want them to be in the same range. And now I can, you know, they're dealing with the same blue now. So get the colors how you want. The one thing I'm going to really worry about right now is just making sure that this down here is the darkest. Let's see what that looks like in our color. Wow, it's shiny. But I think the color's good. I'm happy with that. And I'm happy with the edges. Looks like water now. Okay. All right, so the color's good. So next, let's take care of the roughness. And that's a relatively simple thing to do. Let's get another invert grayscale. And we'll take what our normals are doing and we'll invert them. So that means that overall, the bits that are the highest as far as the normals are concerned are going to be the shiniest because they tend to rub up against things more than things that are lower, you know, in craggy crags and stuff. Then we'll get a levels node, and we want the whole thing globally to be rougher. So I'm just going to take the whole thing up. There. I'm happy with that. So now we are actually ready to deal with this bad boy. And we've got our mask in here. And now we have to create a mask that's going to create those eddies around our land bits. So I want it to be very smooth because it's gonna be a warp. We're gonna just warp it against something as it flows over it. And it wants to follow this general landmass, but we don't want to like deal with all these little bits and pieces on the edges that we created. We just want this general flow. So I want to create a very blurry version of my landmass mask. This very, very smooth one. So before we put any kind of rocky stuff on it, that's the one I want. And it's blurred out, and in my notes, I had it set pretty high. I have it set at 15.32. Let's see how that works for us. And we'll get one warp node because we're just going to copy this out. So I'm going to get it how I like it on the color, and then will just apply to all the other guys. Okay, let's see. You know what? Let's mask this first because it's kind of hard to tell what's going on. Let's come into our height, and I'm going to get another invert. I'm going to get a blend, and that is going to give me the outlines of my emissive. Well, it's color and emissive is the same thing, but it lets me see how this warp works much better because I can actually see where my edges are now. And now I can adjust my warp to get these flows to look like I want them to. And we can also test it against the configurations. And it's always flowing around the edges. So I think that, I mean, without actually testing the animation, I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and, oh, you know what we didn't do? We still have all of this stuff happening in those cracks. So let's find the mask that we're going to use for this one. And I think, I mean, it's really, what I have to decide now is like how far inland do I want it to just glow? I think around the edges, I really do still want it to have the, you know, the sort of the flowy animation, if you will. So for the glowy animation, I'm going to come back to this earlier mask, I think. In fact, no, that's too big. Let's try it with this one and see what happens. Except it's doing it backwards. Oh, because, yeah, well, because I know, see that, and it would have paid to have that transform that the input parameter that I just got rid of, because I initially had done it with a positive mask. So you see, lesson learned. We should have kept it in. I'm going to not bother. I'm just going to get an invert grayscale here and put it on there. See what happens. And because it's coming in, it's getting its information from the one that's in the dot, and we were using that low res, I'm going to turn this into relative to parent. Yeah, it's coming out too much. I think when we look at it with the, it's kind of messing with, well, maybe I wanted to mess with the edge. You know what? I'll leave it for now. Why am I still getting, I guess that it doesn't go out too far because I'm getting, in this crack right here, I'm still getting, you know what? I'm going to put a levels node in here. And let's see what this looks like with the color. I'm finding it very distracting, so let's see what it looks like in here. I'd like to do something about that if I can. I'm not, oh, if I can't do anything about it quickly, I'm not going to worry about it too much, but that's weird because when I look at it here, that should be covered up, but it's not. Oh, because I'm heading in the wrong direction, that's why. I want to make that black bigger, not smaller. No, I was right the first time. It's just not going in that far. I'm not really going to worry about it. The important thing is that, you know, because at the edges, it's, you know, it kind of makes sense. It's, I really didn't want to have it happening in here, which it's not. And then as we change the configuration, I mean, we end up with more and more glowy bits. In fact, I think it's, once you get small like this, it's too much. Let's bring it back down again. So you kind of have to find that sweet spot. Yeah, okay. That'll work. In fact, you know what? I'm going to take it down even a little bit more. All right, that'll do for now. Okay, now we have to take this warp and we have to apply this same scenario to pretty much everything that we've got here. I mean, this blend is going to be different for different stuff. This warp is going to be exactly the same. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4 more of these. Duplicated out 4. And we'll just, oh, you know, this is driving me crazy. I forgot to, let's take care of this because it's, you'll learn something new potentially. I'm going to come back here. I want to change the order of these guys. So I'm going to come back into my lava waves. I'm going to double click on my graph. I'm going to come down here to output images, and I can change the order in which they appear. And this way it's going to match the order that I like it in. So you can always do that. I mean, half the time I don't bother, but today we did. Okay, and then you'll see that once we come out here, that's changed the order in which these things appear here. So now that they match what we've got going on here. I'm going to use the same one for my color and my emissive. Oh, you know what? I'm going to get rid of that emissive altogether. Let's go back there, get rid of the emissive. Well, if we ever wanted to use it again, let's leave the emissive in. I don't need to use it because it's the exact same thing. So I'm going to take this color one and I'm going to plug it into the color this way. I'm going to get a black. I'm going to duplicate this. And instead of my color, I'm going to use this black. I'm going to hit D to dock it, and then this can be my emissive. Because it's exactly the same as the color, except for, you know, instead of color, we got black, or we got no color. Well, we got no emissive, rather. Okay, next is going to be our normal, which we now have to switch out for this guy. It's starting to look like something now. Let's make sure I have my height set in. Yeah. Okay. That looks pretty good. So that's the color, the normal, and the emissive done. I'm going to make a little bit more room. Next we have our height, which is done. We're done with the height. We don't really, oh wait, no, we haven't put in the height from this one. Okay, so we've got height, and we might as well copy this blend node. I am going to put a levels node in between these two just in case I need to adjust them relative to each other. And then where's our height? It's here. Because I want to drop this down. These are being very jagged. Those things right there, I don't like that. But I'm pretty sure that if we smooth this out and then drop the whole thing down, it'll work better for us. Next we have the roughness. Yeah, we're not going to need this one because we're not using the emissive. And again, same deal. Let's publish this out and see if it even works, because we haven't looked at it in a while. Save all of these and let's publish it out. Just realize a couple of things. We need to expose our flow. I'm going to leave the turn alone. I'm not going to expose the turn, but I do want to expose the flow speed, because we only want it running in this one direction. So this isn't something we're going to need in the final result, but I do want to have this exposed. So it's already called what I want to call it, so I'm just going to go ahead and expose it. And it now appears in my input parameters. Okay, so let's do that again. Okay. All right. So that's a 2K. It's running okay. Let's see how it looks if we bring this down to parent -1. Oh wait, hold on a second. I've got it set at input right now. What's going on with her? So it's taking its size information from these masks, which quite frankly do not have to be at 2K. I guess, oh, I see. I guess by default this is from parent size, so we'll just do this relative to input. And that brings the lava itself down to, assuming we're doing a parent size of 2K, to 512, which is probably a bit low as far as aesthetics go. but it makes a big difference in the way, in how much processing speed it takes. Let's try it at just, parent -2. We might bump it up to parent -1, but let's just see what that looks like. I help it, sometimes, at least with my video card, if I refresh the animation, it gives it more accurately. Well, that's running better, definitely. But I want to see it at 1K. I think there's too much of a difference here. See, the lava can be at a lower res because it's kind of mushy, so I don't mind it being a little bit lower, but I think that's too much. So let's see what this looks like at, I'm going to bring this up to parent, and then I'm going to tell it parent -1. So it's not going to pay attention to this mask input. It's just doing it off of parent, but it's doing it under one less than whatever you've got going on. Oops, but we have to change this to parent then. Just bring, I'm just going to make these parent. This way I don't have to think about it. So that's going to, this one we stepped up by 1, and then we're just going to step up the warp itself and just bring it back. And that's still saving some speed because this was at 40 something or other at 2K. So it's about halved the speed of the processing time of the actual animation. Okay, but I think it looks better like this. So let's see how that works. Yeah, I'll keep it at 1K. The one thing that I'm still not liking about this is that I think that this ground is, these things are too wide. I don't like these cracks. I like the surface of it. I just don't like the cracks. So let's come back and work on that. Okay, so let's go into our emissive mask. I want to clean that up. Oh, I see what's going on. We need to find a new mask to use for our emissive because I think this is the problem here. I want to use these cracks. So I'm going to take this one here because that's where I started this height mask that I was using, and I'm going to get another blend. And I'm going to use a darken blend on this. I'm going to use it for both of these. Except I'm going to need to invert that. Yeah, better. Much better. I'm going to see what happens when we put it in the player. Yeah, I'm much happier with that. Refresh that animation, and hopefully it still looks good at 1K, which it does, and that's running absolutely smooth now. So when this is at 1K, this is at 5K. I mean at 512 by 512, but those cracks still look okay at the lower res. So something like this, you want it to look good and you want to be able to bracket it. So I'm actually pretty happy with this. And it's flowing around my rocks, and my flow works, and my configurations work. And obviously you can put, you can get more detailed with how you do these. And if you really want to go crazy with it, I mean, obviously be careful because each node you add adds processing, computations that have to happen. But as you change these, you can actually get pretty tricky with functions and stuff, and actually have each configuration can, for example, have its own levels node that masks it out in its own particular way. We didn't do that here. If you do that, I would limit it to like a couple 3 if you're going to really put time and effort into them, because it's all a question of balancing out and how much processing it's going to take to have what you want happen. But I think overall I'm pretty happy with this. I'm maybe not happy with some of these smaller configurations at the end because I think that this is getting a little too The edge is kind of getting messy. Hey, let's fix it. So let's look at it again at the smallest one, because I like it here. And let's test it again on number 5. I think that's probably our problem. Yeah, that's better. Let's see what it looks like as it gets larger. Yeah, that works because it looks good here, and as we bring it up, we're not getting those little weird spots. But that's how this kind of thing works. You gotta, just make sure that you don't forget to cycle through your various configurations, because you like tweak it for one and then realize that it doesn't work for any of the other ones. We don't need this. And I think we are done. Yeah, it looks much better. I think I like that one the best. But, I'm sure yours looks very different because they always do. And, this, what we got going on here, you can actually apply to, you can pair materials like this and then have them pair, like when you build them, they're paired for each other, but you build them in such a way that you could go ahead and plug other things in as well. So, with this land, you can plug other animations in too, like a water, for example, or the lava, because we've got that turn in there. You can use it with some other, you can use it by itself or with some other configuration of, landmass. And, it saves work down the road, because this way you don't have to build a material you don't have to build things from scratch every single time. And very often what I'll also do is I will, create things in pairs like this. And if I need to reuse it for something else and I do have to tweak it, I'll just make a copy and tweak the copy. And it just saves me having to build stuff from scratch. So I hope that's been helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.